The gravel crunched under her boots like it always did on closing nights, and Adaora Mensa Baptiste thought about nothing except getting to her car. That was the thing about working the closing shift at a gas station off Highway 17 outside Sudbury. By the time you locked the door, counted the float, and dragged the garbage bags to the bin out back, your brain had gone quiet, not peaceful quiet, just empty. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes and makes the parking lot lights look like they're breathing. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of night where the temperature drops fast enough that you can feel it happen. Not cold yet, just honest. The kind of night that reminds you the season is changing whether you're ready or not. Adaora had been doing this shift for 3 weeks. It wasn't her plan. It was nobody's plan. She'd come back to Sudbury in September after 8 years. 3 in CFB Petawawa, 2 deployed, 1 in rehabilitation, 1 doing nothing on purpose, and 1 trying to figure out what doing something on purpose even looked like anymore. Her Aunt Bernadette had an extra room and enough decency not to ask too many questions. The gas station job paid $12.50 an hour and required exactly 0 decisions, which was what Adaora needed. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself a lot of things. She was 29 years old, and she had not thought about combat in 4 months. That was something. The parking lot of Lapointe's Esso was a wide, flat square of cracked asphalt, surrounded on 3 sides by dark tree line, and on the 4th by the highway. There was a Tim Hortons across the road. It was closed. There was a motel down the access road. The vacancy sign buzzed. That was the whole neighborhood. At this hour, and it was just past midnight, the lot was usually empty by the time she came out. Usually. Tonight there were 4 of them leaning against a pickup truck parked directly beside her Civic. She noticed them before she pushed through the door. That was not something she chose to do. It was just what her eyes did. Her body had been trained by people who cared very much about whether she lived, and that training did not go away because she'd left the forces. It sat in the back of her nervous system like a pilot light, low and steady and waiting. 4 men. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. She clocked the body language first. Loose, loud, performing for each other. One of them was passing a bottle. One of them was already looking at her. Not the way people look at a stranger. The way people look at something they've already decided belongs to them. Adaora did not change her pace. She walked to the garbage bin, dropped the bags, tied the lid. "Hey!" This from the one by her car door. "You work here?" "Yep," she said. "Gas pump still on?" "Nope. Pumps cut off at midnight." She said it flat, not rude. Just the answer. There was a pause. She used it to note the distance between herself and her car, between the car and the nearest road, between her keys in her jacket pocket and her right hand. None of this was dramatic. It was just inventory. The way you check your pockets before leaving the house. "That's too bad," said the one with the bottle. He was the biggest of them, and he'd repositioned himself without appearing to move. That's always the one to watch. The one who moves without looking like they're moving. Long drive from Espanola. We were counting on that. There's an Irving station 20 minutes north past the reserve, Adaora said. They're 24 hours. Maybe we're not in a rush. She found her key, put it in the lock, opened the door. "You new here?" This from a different one, younger, with a patchy beard and the specific confidence of someone who has never once faced a consequence. "Don't remember seeing you before." "Odd for 3 weeks," she said. She got in the car. The big one put his hand on the door before she could close it. Now, here is the thing about that moment. And this is the part worth paying attention to. Most people, and I mean most reasonable adults, feel fear in that moment. The hand on the door, the blocked exit, the 4 of them, and the empty parking lot and the dark tree line. The rational response is panic, and the panic response is to escalate or to freeze. Adaora Mensa Baptiste felt neither of those things. What she felt, if you asked her later, and someone eventually would, was a very specific kind of clarity. The same clarity she'd felt in Kandahar. in the narrow alley where things went sideways at 0300, in the seconds before everything became either fast or permanent. The noise in her head stopped. The tiredness behind her eyes stopped. Everything that was not immediately relevant simply dropped away. She looked at his hand on her door. She looked at him. "You're going to want to move that," she said. He laughed. His friends laughed. And then a fifth one came around from behind the truck, and then a sixth stepped out from the tree line, where he'd apparently been the whole time. 6 of them. She counted. She always counted. "Look," said the big one, and his voice had shifted. Lower, slower, not for performance anymore, just for her. "We don't want any trouble." "That's interesting," Adaora said. "Because from where I'm sitting, trouble is the only thing you've been setting up for the last 4 minutes. He hadn't expected that. People rarely expected her to name it out loud. There's a thing that happens when someone says the quiet part, when they put words directly on the situation everyone else is pretending doesn't exist. The room, or in this case the parking lot, changes. The men who were loose and loud went still. "You think you're something," said the youngest one, the one with the patchy beard. "I think I'm tired," Adaora said. "And I think my shift ended 12 minutes ago, and I think I would really like to go home." She was still in the car, door still open, his hand still on it, 6 men between her and the road. She did not reach for the phone. She did not raise her voice. She didn't cry, didn't plead, didn't bargain. What she did was get out of the car. That surprised them. Getting back out was not the expected move. People who are afraid stay in the car, or they don't get in at all. They don't step back out calmly and stand up straight and exhale. She was 5'6" and wearing a work vest that still had a Lapointe's Esso name tag on it. She was holding her keys. She looked objectively like a woman who had just finished a closing shift at a highway gas station. She also had a combined 7 years of military combatives training, a CFLRS hand-to-hand qualification she'd upgraded twice, and this part her instructors had noted in her file, a particular aptitude for what they called spatial awareness under duress, which was a very official way of saying she could stand in a parking lot with 6 men and already know exactly how this ended. "I'm going to say this once," she said. "You can get back in your truck, drive up to the Irving, fill up, and go home, or we can find out what happens next. But I want to be clear. Only one of those options ends the same way it started." The big one smiled, and she could see it the moment he decided. He moved. What happened in the next 45 seconds has been described by the one person who witnessed it from a distance, a trucker named Gord who'd pulled into the lot for a nap and woke up to the noise, as the most efficient thing I've ever seen in a parking lot, and I've been driving since 1987. Gord could not describe it in detail. It was too fast. What he could say was that the big one went down first, and then the one with the bottle, and that the other 4 made some decisions about their priorities. He said 2 of them ended up sitting on the ground, and 2 of them left, he wasn't sure exactly when, and that the whole thing was over before he'd fully processed that it had started. Adaora stood in the parking lot afterward. She was breathing a little harder. Her work vest had a tear in the collar where someone had grabbed it. That was the extent of the damage to her person. She looked at the 2 still on the ground, the big one and the one with the bottle, and she said, quietly, "The Irving Station, 20 minutes north, past the reserve." Then she got in her car and drove home. She did not call the police that night. There was nothing broken that wasn't already on its way to being broken. She'd assessed it and made a judgment call, the way you did. She lay in the dark in her Aunt Bernadette's spare room, and she stared at the ceiling and she waited to feel something. After a while she felt tired. The regular kind this time. She was back at work Thursday. Gord, it turned out, was a regular at Lapointe. He came in Friday morning for a large double-double and a butter tart, and he looked at her for a long moment across the counter. "You're the one from Tuesday night," he said. "I work here, yeah," she said. "No." He pointed with his coffee cup at the parking lot. "Tuesday night. Adaora considered this for a moment. Then she slid his butter tart into a paper bag and said, "That'll be $4.80. He paid. He sat down at the single table by the window. He came back to the counter 20 minutes later. "My daughter," he said. "She walks to work. Late shift at the hospital. I've been asking her to take self-defense classes for 2 years. She keeps saying she will." Adaora put the next customer's coffee together. "What kind of work is she in?" she said. "Registered nurse. Night shift at Health Sciences North. Smart woman. She is." He paused. "Would you teach her?" Adaora didn't answer right away. She handed the coffee to the next customer. She wiped down the counter. She thought about the question, not as a question about a class, but as a question about what she had to give, which was not something she'd thought about in a long time, because she'd been operating on the assumption that whatever she had to give had already been spent. "I'll think about it," she said. She thought about it for 6 days. On the 7th day, she drove to the community center on Paris Street and asked to speak to whoever ran the programming, a woman named Diane, who had the energy of someone who has organized approximately 14,000 bake sales and come out the other side stronger for it, sat with her for an hour and asked a lot of questions and took a lot of notes. "How long would you want to run it?" Diane said. 8 weeks, Adaora said. "To start. And you've got credentials." Adaora handed her the folder she'd brought. The folder was neat and complete and contained documentation that Diane clearly had not expected, because she went quiet for a full minute. "Okay," Diane said. "We can give you the gym on Wednesday evenings." The first class had 4 people in it. Gord's daughter, whose name was Lauren, and who arrived in scrubs and immediately said, "My dad told me you took down 6 guys in a gas station parking lot." 3 others who'd seen the flyer. "He exaggerates," Adaora said. "It was 6. Lauren blinked. "That was a joke," Adaora said, "mostly." She stood at the front of the gym at CF Conditioning Hall and looked at the 4 people in front of her. She'd taught one thing at a time her entire adult life: how to move through terrain, how to read a situation, how to survive in a moment where survival is not guaranteed. She'd never tried to explain it to civilians. She wasn't sure she knew how. She started where she always started. "The first lesson is not about how to throw a punch," she said. "The first lesson is about the 3 seconds before a situation becomes dangerous, and what you do in them. Because most people waste those 3 seconds trying to figure out if they're reading the situation wrong. They're afraid of being rude. They're afraid of overreacting." She paused. "In those 3 seconds, I need you to trust yourself." She moved to the whiteboard. She wrote 3 words: leave, stay, chemist. "Your first instinct," she said, "when something feels wrong, is always correct. Maybe you look at the situation and you leave. Fine. Leaving is a skill, not a failure. Maybe you stay, you read it, you understand it. Maybe you commit, meaning you've assessed and you've made a decision and there's no more waiting. What I'm teaching you is not how to fight. I'm teaching you how to think in the 3 seconds before you have to." Lauren was leaning forward. The other 3 were paying attention in the way people pay attention when something is landing. "Now," Adaora said, "let's talk about what your body already knows how to do." The class grew. 6 people by week 2, 11 by week 4. By the end of the 8 weeks, there were 17 women sitting in that gym on Wednesday nights, including a woman of 72 named Hannelore, who said she'd been meaning to do something like this since 1988, and was glad someone had finally gotten around to organizing it. Adaora ran a 2nd session, then a 3rd. Diane called her in January. "The city wants to know if you'd run it in 3 community centers," she said. Adaora sat with that for a moment. Outside the window of her aunt's house, Sudbury was gray and still, the way northern Ontario gets in January when the light gives up early. 3 locations, she said. 3 locations. Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. She thought about the moment in the parking lot when she'd stepped back out of the car. The choice to not stay in the car, not lock the doors, not wait for something bad to finish deciding to happen. She thought about the years she'd spent being trained for exactly that moment, and the strange long distance between then and a gas station job on Highway 17. She thought about Lauren, who now walked to her hospital shift without looking at her phone, who looked up and around and knew what she was walking into. "Okay," Adaora said, "3 locations." She hung up. She went to the kitchen and made herself a coffee. She stood at the window and drank it while the light came in sideways, the way it does in January, gray and level and steady. The kind of light that doesn't promise anything but shows up anyway. It was enough. That's the thing nobody tells you about coming back. You expect to either heal completely or not heal at all. You expect it to be total. What you don't expect is the ordinary, incremental business of finding out what you're still useful for. The morning you wake up and realize the pilot light didn't go out. It just needed something to light. For Adaora Mensa Baptiste, it turned out to be a Wednesday night in a community center gym and 17 women who showed up. And it started, as these things sometimes do, with a parking lot and 6 men who had no idea what they'd walked into.